The state of Wyoming is already number one regarding gold and silver based off of a very important measure, but they're working to make another huge leap with gold and silver. But there is a setback. We'll talk about what's going on in Wyoming as we explore. This is another battle in the war for sound money, and this is the sound money revolution, as I call it, and Wyoming is in front and center as there is a lot of activity happening in that state. It's such an important state for a lot of different reasons, and I'm going to be explaining some of those in this video here, but first I'm going to remind you of channel sponsor Summit Metals. Elevate your wealth with Summit Metals. They have great prices, excellent service, and fast shipping. So check them out at summitmetals.com. There's a great piece by the Cowboy State Daily that outlines exactly what's going on in the state of Wyoming right now. So important in the United States as they are moving closer to using gold and silver as legal tender. This is a piece by Renee Jean, and just fresh off the press, so to speak, when State Senator Bob Idle, a Republican from Casper, introduced the Wyoming Gold Act earlier this year, which requires the Wyoming State Treasurer to buy and hold at least $10 million in physical gold, the price of gold was much lower then. It was hovering around $2,600 to $2,700 an ounce. But now gold, we're seeing it trade at around $3,380 an ounce, and it even reached $3,500 an ounce in April. Any gold bought then would already be worth 33% more. Such spikes in the price have now made acquiring physical gold a little trickier than it was, Idle said. But he also believes that is helping demonstrate why holding physical gold is a valuable diversification of the state's financial portfolio. It can help protect value and wealth from inflation and uncertainty. And he's right there. All things said, gold really doesn't go up, he said. The dollar goes down. In the grand scheme of things, that's exactly right. And gold is just a measure of what's going on with the devaluation of our currency, the dollar. The Wyoming Gold Act was the latest in a string of plays that put the Cowboy State at the top of the 2025 Sound Money Index, which is published annually by the Sound Money Defense League. Yes, the Sound Money Index, and Wyoming is right there on the very tippy top of their ratings. Sound money is a term adopted by advocates of returning gold and silver to use as legal currency because they contend with precious metals they hold their value over time. So this index, the Sound Money Index, looks at several factors for its ranking of all 50 states, including the overall environment and policies of each state when it comes to handling precious metals like gold and silver. Extra points are also available for states who have gone beyond the conceptual and taken concrete steps towards sound money. It really is a well-thought-out index, by the way. And those include holding state reserves in gold, as Wyoming is required to do by 2026 by the Wyoming Gold Act, or enforcing policies that reaffirm gold as legal tender. Wyoming took the number one spot from Utah back in 2019, a year after passing the Wyoming Legal Tender Act, which removes sales tax when buying or selling gold or silver bullion coins and bars. That bill was sponsored by the late Roy Edwards. We were one of the early states to accomplish that, Idle said, and Utah had essentially led the charge on that before. But even Utah legislature said that Wyoming's Legal Tender Act was the best one in the country. I'd said a unique advantage point was that particular bill. My wife actually had the bill crafted, he said. She's state coordinator for Campaign for Liberty, and that is a movement among other states to pretty much reaffirm the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, that makes gold and silver legal tender. Lots of states have followed Wyoming's lead since then. Florida just passed making gold and silver legal tender, and Governor DeSantis did a big, huge press conference and brought in all of the people who helped get it passed, and they proudly wore the badge of making gold and silver legal tender in the state of Florida. as they like to refer to it. So Ide's bill was just building on that progress. And it's something that he believes will help to get the right plumbing essentially in place for the state to handle gold and silver as legal tender. Wyoming's position as a leader in the Sound Money Index has already been a game changer, he said. I've heard the CEO of the Scottsdale Mint reference what a time or two as one of the reasons they decided to come to Wyoming. Because the precious metal laws and the foreign trade and opportunity zone, it's an economic development attractor. Indeed it is. In fact, Scottsdale, you're familiar with them. In fact, Summit Metals sells Scottsdale products like this bar here, the Vortex bar, the 10-ounce one. Got this from Summit Metals. A really, really cool piece indeed, and it's pretty amazing the different products they have. They also have a cowboy round, which if I had one, I'd show them there, show it here, because Wyoming, after all, is the cowboy state. So Josh Fair told Cowboy State Daily he appreciates how Wyoming manages its money. He confirmed that that's one of the big reasons he chose Casper for the Scottsdale Mint. Scottsdale, by the way, is in reference to the city of where the organization was founded in Arizona. But now they're in Wyoming. And said, yes, Wyoming runs, it's almost like its own sovereign wealth fund. He referring to the state's minerals trust. And now Scottsdale Mint, they manufacture gold and silver coins for governments all over the world. And if it was listed as a sovereign wealth fund, I think it'd be a top 20 in the world, Fair says. Many states have been running deficits, but Wyoming has taken the opposite track. While those states are going to get their money, where are they going to get their money from? They're going to ask for bailouts from somebody, or taxes are going to go up. Yes, and you'd be surprised how many states get money from the federal government pretty much on a regular basis. It's crazy. And so Fair has been impressed both with Wyoming's sound money laws and its cryptocurrency legislation. To me, it doesn't mean we're going to be running around in gold chariots or anything. To me, it just means steady. It means Wyoming isn't going to change dramatically as it goes forward. It's very strong as a state, and it's been interesting to watch as Wyoming is looking at doing its own stablecoin and rolling that out. Fair believes that the stablecoin has a great potential to bring in profits to Wyoming if it's run well. So they're diversified, but gold is and silver are going to be a part of it too. State is able to help out of things on a lot of things, and hopefully, while maybe the U.S. goes through some of the big storms here, Wyoming can stay stable. That is key. We are states. We are United States, but we are individual states, and we can be fiscally responsible in the states that we live. Ide's bill didn't get Wyoming Governor Gordon's signature, though. That's the big problem. No signature for the bill. Instead, it got a letter objecting to several things in the bill. Gold is not an investment as much as it is a commodity or store of value, Gordon wrote in his letter. The only income to be derived from gold is to sell it for a greater price than it was purchased. Market timing speculation is not a consistently valuable investment strategy, as gold will trade for more or less depending on market conditions. Storing gold also requires a significant expense when it comes to security, logistics, and warehousing, Gordon added, and is somewhat contrary to the state's preferences to invest for best available risk-adjusted returns. Wyoming's treasurer was already allowed to acquire gold as part of the state's asset allocation if and when it would be beneficial, Gordon added, to the extent that the legislature now intends to intervene in the consequential and significant process of positioning the state loan and investment board's investment processes away from the objective of highest risk-adjusted return to holding non-income producing assets. It represents an invasion of the responsibilities of the executive branch, according to what he wrote. That could prove a detriment to the state's portfolio performance, Gordon suggested, and it's something to be avoided in the future. However, that means he has a profound misunderstanding of what gold and silver are over the long course of time. He goes on, the treasurer of Wyoming, Kurt Meyer, expressed similar issues as Gordon's letter during testimony about the bill, but told Cowboy State Daily in an email he thinks it's a sound idea overall. Our state's investment in gold is just a drop in the bucket related to our overall strategy, as it represents less than a tenth of a percent of our overall investments, he said. But it is a sound idea overall. Gold can help provide stability when inflation is high. Boom, he gets it, exactly. And it's easy to see how, since the price has continued to grow. With that said, the downside is there's no way to take advantage of any increase in value unless you sell your physical assets. Well, you can use it as leverage. Central banks do it. Taking money away from the state's investment portfolio by holding it in gold ultimately detracts from the fund's purpose, Meyer added. Wyoming general funds depend on revenue from earnings on our investments. Nearly one-third of the state's budget is paid for through investment income. Taking money away from our regular portfolio decreases the amount of money we will be able to provide annually. So Brian Peterson, a financial expert in Cheyenne, told Cowboy State Daily he felt characterizing the bill as a sound money policy is misleading. It's incredible that we passed a bill that gives us an illiquid investment one way that requires assay value in an insurance policy, adding that he's skeptical the state could use physical gold to pay debts owed to the federal government or contractor. So we'd have to move it to dollars because a contractor won't be paid in gold, he said. Although I say that's debatable as well. In fact, we've seen examples of businesses, individuals taking gold and silver as payment. Peterson also objected to a requirement to buy gold on a particular timeline, saying he doesn't allow the treasurer to pick the best timing and price for the asset. While gold advocates say that gold, by and large, holds its value, Peterson sees it as a commodity and a volatile one as that. We're not forced to hold something, even facing a possible downturn in gold, but we've got to hold it either way, based off a legislative view that gold holds its price, regardless of what history may tell us, Peterson said, and the insurance on that is through the roof. What do we do with it? Put it in one of those 150-year-old vaults? Boy, he's got a lot to learn, unfortunately. But, I mean, good questions from a layperson's point of view. But Ide sees it differently. He noticed central banks stockpiling gold the past 16 or so years and really ramping it up since 2022. He believes upping the amount of gold reserves Wyoming holds is probably the next card that the state should play when it comes to ensuring the soundness of its money. We've got a policy of $2 trillion deficit spending in Washington. You know, we bring in the $5 trillion in tax revenues, and we spend like $7 trillion. So I think we need to do our more with precious metals. If you look at the charts of the national debt next to the graph of the price of gold, it's a protector of deficit spending. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that in another 10 years, the United States will be another $24 trillion in debt. That's just more horsepower for gold to protect our wealth, and I don't see what's changing. We're not doing anything to lower our spending in this big, beautiful bill that didn't even implement any of the Doge rescissions. It's just status quo Biden spending. Another step Ide is interested in is seeing next would be adding more physical gold to the state's pension funds. I think there is one other state that has a pension that owns some physical gold, but really no other state has other than Utah. I think Utah already has $60 million invested in physical precious metals. There's a strong state. They're a strong state financially as well, and they're paying attention to what's going on out there. Exactly right. So I like this piece by Renee Jean because she lays out both sides, and that's always good to think critically and certainly I understand both sides of the argument, but I think overall, when you see what gold has been, and silver as well, by extension has been for thousands of years. In fact, we know that it wasn't that long ago when we used to use it as money. We used to take and spend gold coins and silver coins. That's right. This is what was money. In fact, it still is, according to the Constitution, and even according to what central banks are actively doing with gold around the world. So I hope Wyoming can be their own central bank, but you can be your own central bank by holding gold and silver. That empowers us as stackers, no matter what the dollar does, and really no matter what the price does either, because there's more to gold and silver than just its price. And some of the detractors of this bill certainly don't understand that. But I does, and I think this is great. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.